Namaste, everybody. Welcome to our third session of live streaming about Ayurvedic concepts and its application in day-to-day life. Today, we are going to handle a very important topic. It's about how to handle the fire in you, regarding the fire element in you. So, before we start, we are very proud and glad to have one of an eminent Ayurveda practitioner from Netherlands, Mr. Mariella Glory, who is also one of our beloved friend and student from our Academy of Ayurveda, Netherlands, joining us today. So, welcome, Mariella Glory. Would you please unmute your mic?
Hello, Dr. Fidget. Very nice to see you again.
Yes. So, I think one of the biggest achievements that she has made in her profession is that she has a big center in a beautiful island called Texel in Netherlands. And she's running this center with her husband and a big family, I think 4 children. Since so many years, and she's also a well-known yoga teacher and especially specialized in the Ayurveda part of yoga, or the healing part of the yoga, using yoga postures to treat people and to help people. So this is what she's doing. So I proudly and wholeheartedly welcome Mariella Glory to introduce herself and also to show us her center.
Thank you, Dr. Fidget. Thank you. Yes, we have a center in on Texel, on the island of Texel in the Netherlands, and we call this Suka Texel. And as you might know, Su means good and Ka means space. So what we try to create is a good space for healing to attain happiness for people. And as Dr. Fidget so beautifully explained in his first class, was how important the mindset is in the healing process. So we try to accommodate people with a good ambience and a nice atmosphere for healing. So most people arrive at Sunday and they stay till Friday. And in these days, they have a consultation and they have they can join 3 yoga classes. They have treatments. They have delicious Ayurvedic food. So everything to get used to an Ayurvedic lifestyle. So I'll show you a bit around. See, here we have the consultation in this room, and then we have a very nice treatment room. I hope you are able to see that. This is the treatment room with the massage table. Hope you can see
Mariella, we cannot really see the massage table. So would you please lower the camera so that we can see?
Okay, this is the table, and you can see the Shirodhara behind it for the Shirodhara treatment. And the oils we are using. I'll turn the other way. Hopefully you are able to see the Svedana.
Would you please move a little bit more back so that we can see the full box, the steam bath?
Let's like this, yeah.
Perfect.
So, not suitable for everybody, as you know, but maybe Dr. Fidget will explain more about that when he's talking about Pitta. So what we are trying to do is that people can experience what it is to live an Ayurvedic lifestyle and how it sustains their day-to-day life. And so we also give them a goodie bag when they arrive with some explanation about Dinacharya. So they get a neti pot. Oh, it just works the opposite.
Yeah.
I get used to it. And some oil to do oil pulling if that's appropriate for them. And of course, a tongue scraper.
Other way, yeah.
Yeah, works contrary. So people can experience with the food and the dinacharya and the yoga classes that it's not so difficult to have an Ayurvedic lifestyle. And once they experience that, they are more motivated and inspired to continue that at home. And then our mission has succeeded. Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful. Congratulations again, Mariela.
Thank you.
So we will probably ask you something from your experience in the process when we go ahead also. But I hand over the session for you to host and start the session asking me questions about the fire.
Yes. Yes, thank you. When you start studying Ayurveda, you think it's quite simple, and then when you know more about it, then it can be also very confusing with concepts like fire, Pitta, and Agni, and what are the similarities and what are the differences between them, and also how they relate to modern concepts. So my first question for you is, what is the concept of fire in Ayurveda, and can you explain it in the light of modern biology?
Yes. So as we all know that Agni or fire is one among the 5 elements. And when an ancient science like Ayurveda states that there is fire in the body, and which is the center of everything, the whole physiology. I see many people just folding their forehead, just saying, what? There is fire in the body, because you don't see a fire or you don't see a flame within your body. So when they said that there is a fire or there are fires in the body, what did they mean is the first thing what we have to understand. What does this fire inside human body mean? So as we know, when we speak about fire, we are speaking about a single element. And when we are speaking about a single element, we are speaking about almost atomic or subatomic level. And the first expression for people to understand is that, actually human biology or biology in general, physiology has not really reached a subatomic level of understanding life. We are still at the level of molecular biology. But still we find a lot of parallels between these concepts in modern medicine and modern biology. Let us look into what is fire. I already have said fire is, or states, or the bhutas or the elements are nothing but units of 5 states of matter. So I have already explained that in another class. So earth stands for solids, water stands for liquids, fire stands for plasma, air stands for gaseous state, and space stands for ether. So these basic 5 states of matter. And we know that plasma is the state of matter in the sun. The sun, which is even in Ayurveda, in Vedic science, which is identified as the source of fire and the center of fire, center of this galaxy, is made up of hydrogen and helium. Almost three-fourths of it is just hydrogen and 1/4 of it is just helium. But because of this exothermous activity, they all get ionized. So an ionized state of gas is what is known as plasma. So it is the gases which, when heated and getting ionized, turns into an illuminatory state, which is nothing but plasma. And let us look at what did our ancient seers say. It is from the air or vayu that the Agni is born, or it is from the air principle that the fire is born. Fire is produced out of air. This is as good as saying plasma is produced out of ionizing the gases. So when you are speaking about Agni, we are speaking about ionized gases. And now let us look into, is there such things happening? So now burning or combustion, burning outside is what is known as combustion. And combustion is called as a complete oxidation of organic substances. So either an animal or a plant body, when it is completely oxidized in the presence of gases, especially oxygen, that is what is known as burning, and converting the carbon present in the organic molecules completely oxidized into carbon dioxide and ashes. So this process is what is chemically combustion. And of course, this combustion doesn't happen in the body, but oxidation does happen. Oxidation is the main process of energizing. And oxidation need not be always in the presence of oxygen. It can be also, oxidation in biochemistry also stands for extracting electrons from a molecule for energy releasing. Or it is the process, if you look at biochemistry, the modern medicine, we can simply say life is nothing but eating organic substances, breathing oxygen, and breaking them down and taking it to the cellular level and burning it or oxidizing these organic molecules at cellular using cellular respiration and releasing energy and producing carbon dioxide and water and eliminating carbon dioxide through breath, water through sweat and urine, and then preserving the energy as ATPs, adenosine triphosphate, or ADNH, and using that energy for working this machine called human body, and also for cell repair, cell growth, cell reconstruction, and healing. So this is, in simple words, the biochemistry. So you take organic molecules and oxygen together, oxidize it, release carbon dioxide and water, and produce energy. So if you look at this basic process, it is this oxidation or this combustion which is happening at different levels, which is the basis of life. And thousands of years back, they have identified that it is this kinds of oxidation or ionized gases presence, or breaking the bonds of complex molecules and making them into simpler molecules and releasing the chemical energy is for the energy or for producing calories. How we burn the food that we eat and produce calories. So even you can see the Western medical literature or the biomedicine literature is using almost the same terminology, like burning the food and making calories, and then using it either for cell repair or functioning of human body. So this is how both Ayurveda and the biomedicine, basic biology, modern biology, etc., is understanding burning, oxidation as the basic process of metabolism. Is that clear, Mariela? Probably you need to switch off, unmute your mic.
Thank you, Dr. Fitted. That's so profound and so basic and beautiful how you explain it related to modern science. could you elaborate more on the concept of Pitta, and does it have any similarities to Western concepts like hormones and enzymes?
Yeah, good. So before coming to Pitta, I would like to also elaborate a little bit more on the functions of fire, because then only we can differentiate how Pitta is different from fire, and how they are similar also, how they work together also. So if you look at one of the ancient scriptures called Charaka Samhita, in a chapter called Grahani, which speaks about the digestive disorders, a chronic digestive dysfunction. In that chapter, it explains about it, or the chapter opens with the functions of fire. So we just explain what is fire and how we can compare it with the modern literature. But let us see what are the functions of the fire according to Charaka Samhita. So Charaka Samhita just states that fire, or this oxidation, is responsible for life, ayu, or the basic life process is made by this Agni itself. And the second thing, what they speak about is Varna, or color. So we will see later various pigments in different parts of our body, including the melanin, which is responsible for our skin color. Various pigments in different parts of our body is responsible for the color of different, including hair, skin, iris, various parts. So wherever there is a color, because what is the relationship between fire and color? Because the form or appearance of a substance is a specific guna, property of fire. How sound is related to ether or space, how touch is related to air, how taste is related to water, how smell is related to earth. In the same way, appearance or form, color is related to fire. So pigmentation, producing color, producing specific shape, etc., is the second function of the fire. The third thing is strength. What is strength? Strength is defined as the capability to perform action. And we have already seen how oxygenation or oxidation, production of ATP, ADNH, etc., are the basic process through which you produce energy with which only you can function, both for voluntary and involuntary functions. So this is how fire is responsible for the strength, the third function or third action of fire. Then swasthyam. So swasthyam probably is a very important concept in Ayurveda. Swasthyam literally means putting everything in its place. It's usually compared to homeostasis. So keeping everything in its place. So if you look into human body, you will see that kapha, the earth and water, is above, and the air and space is below. So usually in the universe, you see it in the way around. You see water and earth is below, and the space and air is above. So it is this process of digestion in a specific order, which makes doshas in the first phase of kapha, in the first phase of digestion, then pitta in the second phase of digestion, and vata in the third phase of digestion. So it is because of that the kapha is produced in the first phase of digestion from the stomach and comes up like a froth and nourishes the upper part. That's why the upper part of the human body has kapha in predominance. And in the second part of digestion, which is in between the stomach and small intestines, this is where the Pitta is being produced, and that's why Pitta is predominantly there. And below the navel, or when it comes down to the colon, finally Vata is produced. That is why that is the main seat of Vata. So keeping all the doshas, dhadus, malas in its order, in the right place, in the right time, it's all the functions of Agni, because it is the Agni which produces, it is the fire which transforms the food into your body. The magical process of converting the food into human body is done by Agni. So when Agni functions properly, in the right place, in the right time, in the right channel, the right substances are produced and the life manifests properly. Hence, whole swasthyam is attributed to Agni. The next function of Agni is Utsaha. Utsaha means the enthusiasm or an attitude, it's a psychological state even to perform difficult things. So once Agni functions properly in our body, your mind feels like a springtime or a summertime. So probably the Western people understand me better than Indian people. I see that Ingeborg is watching us. Hi Ingeborg, thanks for joining us. People who are watching us live on YouTube and Facebook, etc., if they can leave a comment, it also makes it a little bit interactive. We also feel enthusiastic. Okay, some people are watching us, and we would like to make it hi Ingeborg, interactive as much as possible. So yeah, this is how enthusiasm comes in when the sun, internal sun. So our fire is the internal sun. How? Veronica, namaste, 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 Veronica. So how sun becomes the center point of the whole galaxy. How the proximity or this movement of Earth around the sun is the basic thing which controls the whole climate and the environment around us. In the same way, the Agni, especially the digestive fire in us, is the center in our physical body. So this is how Utsaha is being produced. Then Upachaya, which is nourishment, is the function of Agni. Then it produces Ojas. Probably Ojas is a concept which we will discuss in another live session like this, which is one of the very unique and very interesting concept of Ayurveda, where the essence of all tissues, including all the impressions, it's the essence of life. It's a metaphysical substance which is present in your heart. So even the Ojas is produced out of the Agni. And then the Teja is the another word. Teja here stands for thermogeneration, or producing heat and maintaining heat in our body. It is also standing for proper vision. It is also standing for the Shukra Dhatu, which is the reproductive tissue in us. So Teja stands for all of this, and all these three has some relationship. So our state of vision, our Shukra, and our heat in the body, this has some relationship, and all these three are produced by Agni. And the digestive fire is responsible for Agnaya. Agnaya means Rahna. Hello, my sister Rahna is also watching. I'm happy from Dubai. She is also joining us. So there are 13 fires. There are 13 fires explained in human body, and the center is the digestive fire, which is responsible for digesting the food and breaking it down into micronutrients, and also separating the waste product as feces and other waste. So this fire is responsible for the all other 12 types of fire. Which are the other 12 types of fire? Fire which is responsible for converting these micronutrients at a molecular level, which is called as Bhutagni. Bhutagni metabolizes the nutrients or the end products of digestion further into a molecular level and then takes a corresponding molecule or a specific molecule which is needed from the food to a specific location. So the bone might need calcium, the thyroid might need iodine, and muscles might need proteins. So different parts of our body will need specific amino acids or specific lipids or glycerides. So it is the Bhutagni which breaks the end product of digestion into those molecular levels and takes the specific necessary elements or bhutas from the food to the specific target organs and tissues of the body according to which element they need. And so after this 5 element fires breaking down the micronutrients into molecular level, then once it reaches these tissues, it is the 7 dhatus and the dhatu agni or the tissue fires which converts these molecules into your own body. So first, the digestive fire breaks down the food into nutrients or its amino acids or lipids or carbohydrate like glucose or fructose or whatever it is. Then specific absorption into specific site is, and further breaking down into micronutrients is done by the Bhutagni, the element fire, and then transforming that into your tissues, human body, is done by the tissue fire, the Tattvagni. So this is how the whole 13 fires work hand in hand after one another and produce your tissues out of food. And all these other 12 fires are also born by this. And we see this. It is the basic energy which is released like ATP. The ATP is the energy needed for further breaking down of, for example, glycolysis is the basic thing. Glycolysis is breaking down glucose, a 6 carbon chained molecule, into pyruvates. So one glucose is broken down into 2 pyruvates. To do this process, to break it down, body needs 2 ATPs. And by the end, body makes 4 ATPs. So body uses fire to break it down and produces further fire for further energy release, and it stores as energy. So this is how Dhatu, Agni transforms into further Agnis and further Agnis. You can see in biochemistry also the same process happen. So this is how Agnis are born. Even Vayus, 5 Vayus, Prana, Udana, Vyana, we will probably see that somewhere else, are produced by the digestive fire. So now we understand what is the concept of fire. Is that clear, Mariela, until now?
Yeah, definitely. It's very, very inspiring also to remember again how important it is that we take good care of this fire because of the importance of it. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly. You said the point. So if this reminds us, probably today when we end this session, we'll come to that point. That's where today we'll stop. The causes of imbalancing fire and how this fire can be, digestive fire can be imbalanced, which completely disturbs. It's like a chain reaction. All other process, nothing can be proper when the digestion is improper. Because life, if you see, it's just transforming food into energy and the molecules needed for your replacement of your cells. If that process begins with digestion and improper molecules are made at the end of digestion, no proper cells, no proper physiology is possible. No energy is formed. Rather, lack of energy is the result. So you spend a lot of energy, but you don't gain any energy, right? So this is the nutshell. So shall I now go to Pitta and try to tell you how Pitta is going to be different and similar to fire?
Yes,
Meanwhile,
please.
I again request, I see people coming and going, and also some people keep watching. So people who are consistently watching, so if you say some things to us, then that also keeps us inspired. So you can see Veronica saying namaste and Ingeborg saying hello, etc. To us. So now Pitta, what is Pitta? The word Pitta starts from the word tapa. It's almost like opposite. Pitta, tapa. Tapa, tapa means santapa or heat. The word Pitta literally means heat, that which is heat which heats others. And again, Charaka Samhita, which is the authentic text on the internal medicine, defines and says that it is the Agni itself. It is the Agni itself which enters as Pitta, which Agni enters into Pitta in the human body. So whatever we have been explaining until now, the oxidative processes, ATPs, ADNH, all these things, that itself enters into another group of substance and it becomes Pitta. So it is a Agni itself entering into some other substance and becoming Pitta. And if that is Kupita, if that is improper, it produces a lot of abnormalities, a lot of troubles for you. And if that formation, that the fire which enters is proper, and into which fire is entering proper, and the process of entering, if all these three things are proper, then you have a Shubha or a proper physiology. So where is this fire entering? It is interestingly into water that the fire enters. So that's what is the irony of life. Or this is what is the beauty of life also. That fire, once expressed, enters into water and express as Pitta. Because if fire exists, too much of fire exists, then it will lead to this burning process. We know that combustion might happen, or oxidative stress might happen. So inflammatory chains might start up. So we have to. So we can see that how this Agni is being given a safe place in water, and then that transforms as Pitta. And then we see some parallels here. So in Western medicine, they say the workhorse proteins called enzymes use these ATPs, which is produced in the process of oxidation or cellular respiration, and use this chemical energy to catalyze or accelerate chemical reactions within the cell that would otherwise proceed very slowly. So you can see a parallel there. Hence the concept of enzymes. A group of enzymes are proteins or which are usually in a liquid state, which captures the energy from the ATPs and they accelerate various chemical reactions that happen within cells. So this is just a parallel, how it runs together. So the biggest difference between fire and Agni, Pitta, is that Pitta has water with fire, and fire is just fire alone. And this Pitta does act as an accelerator or a catalyst, like enzymes. We'll see hormones. We've already seen some pigments, etc., doing some specific functions in different parts of the body, which is called as Agni. And we know another difference between Pitta and Agni is that there are 13 types of Agnis which we have seen, but there are only 5 types of Pittas explained. And even another difference is there are substances like ghee, for example, which increases the fire, which are deepana in its action, but decreases the pitta. So ghee is, if you take ghee, it subsides the pitta or reduces the pitta, but increases the agni. So it's important. So it's not one and the same, but it is one giving birth to the other. So it's the fire itself which transforms as pitta. So, and in another context called as gynecological diseases, Maruti, it's very inspiring. Fire is also important to have continuous balance. Yes. So for in a context of gynecological diseases in Charaka Samhita, Charaka explains that there is a pitta which is present in the reproductive organs of females in the Garbhashaya, which is responsible for menstruation. When imbalanced, this imbalanced pitta will imbalance the menstruation and the menstrual blood and will lead to a state called amenorrhea and will produce emaciation of body and discoloration in skin. So why I am telling this is, even though there were only 5 pittas explained in general, but Charaka Samhita doesn't explain 5 pittas, but later Sushruta explains. But in Charaka, he explains another pitta which is not counted among the other 5 pittas. This pitta is not, when we study about 5 pittas, we don't have a pitta which is responsible for menstruation in females. This is not explained. What I mean to say is that even though only 5 pittas are explained, this shows that there are other pittas also. They didn't tell you that there is only 5 pitta. They just explained the most important 5 pittas. That doesn't negate the possibility of existence of other pittas in body, because it's already told by Charaka himself. So we'll look into which are the 5 pittas. The main pitta is nothing but the Pachaka pitta or the digestive pitta. Pachaka pitta means digestive pitta, which can be compared to the digestive enzymes like amylase, lipase, protease, and lactase. So various digestive enzymes which are responsible for the digestion of carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, which is in the digestive tract. Then next is Ranjaka Pitta. Ranjaka Pitta is explained as the pitta which is responsible for converting the life fluid called rasa into blood. So the pitta which gives color to the lymph or the plasma and convert it into blood is what is known as Ranjaka Pitta. And very interestingly, this is explained as something which is present in the stomach by Charaka Samhita and Ashtanga Hridaya. Sushruta explains that it is in the liver and spleen. So interestingly, Ranjaka Pitta is compared to the Cassell's intrinsic factor, which is present in the mucous membrane of stomach and duodenum, which is responsible for the absorption of vitamin B12 which has a major role in hemopoiesis. And this Cassell's intrinsic factor, when not present properly, leads to pernicious anemia. So it's very interesting that they explain something present in the stomach and duodenum or in the digestive tract, which is responsible for the conversion of rasa into rakta. And we also know that there are some other intrinsic factors present in the kidneys, etc. But at least they have identified a pitta or some substances, intrinsic factors, some enzymatic factors or some catalytic factors which are responsible for the absorption of vitamin B12 in the stomach, which is specifically responsible for the hemopoiesis, production of blood cells. So this is the compared to the Ranjaka Pitta. Sadhaka Pitta is the Pitta which acts on the heart and in the mind and the mental attributes and gives you intelligence, desire, aspiration, achievement, etc. People try to compare it with various things, including the effect of adrenaline, and especially in challenge situations, how it acts on the heart and how it acts to excite you or keep you going. And the fourth pitta is alochaka pitta, which is in your eyes, which is responsible for the vision, which is compared to the rhodopsin and iodopsin pigments, which is present in the rods and cones of the retina, which is responsible for vision. So the alochaka pitta is compared to these pigments. So I have already said how pigments and Agni are connected, colors are connected, and how that is responsible for, in the eye, the vision. That is compared to the alochaka pitta in the eye. And finally, the bhrajaka pitta, which is again another pigment called melanin, which is produced in the melanocytes of the skin, which is responsible for the skin color. So we know that extreme pitta, extremely fiery people become extremely fair because the melanocytes produce less melanin. And more kapha, bit more pigments, more vata, more darker. So likewise, according to the variation of fire element, it changes. And also we see how when you are exposed to heat, sun, your skin get tanned and more it resists. So the function of melanin is also in response to the heat and the light and the sun. So how that is corresponding and has some relationship. How pitta reacts, also protection to UV radiation, etc. through melanin. So these are the 5 pittas explained with some explained in the classics. So I will just go to some of the comments from Omreta. Thank you for sharing this important aspects, above all for mentioning the pitta. Maybe Mariela, if you can switch on the mic and read her comment.
Thank you for sharing this important aspects, above all for mentioning the pitta responsible for menstruation as of Charaka. Please share more about women's health and pitta, Ombretta de Torices.
Yes, thank you, Veronica. We will definitely do that. And Veronica has another question.
I have a question regarding digestive fire. Can Vata, Pitta and Kapha Prakritis all have Zam Agni when in perfect balance? Or does a Pitta Prakriti more tend to have Tikshna Agni, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so definitely Samagni is not possible, as we see for already in the explanations of Pitta and Vata, that how Pitta has Tikshna. The Pitta constitution starts with that explanation. Pitta, when they start Pittam Vanni, Pitta is fire, Vannijamba, or born out of fire. Pittodrikte Tikshna Trishna Bubuksha. When the Pitta is predominant in the constitution, that leads to Tikshna, Trishna, and Bubuksha. That leads to Tikshna type of a sharp hunger and thirst. This is the very first expression when constitution is explained in Ashtanga Hridayam. So, and we know how Vata is Bahubhuja and how Vata has a tendency of Vishamagni and Kapha has a tendency of Mandak. So, definitely Sama Agni, not only Sama Agni, even Samya, the state of absolute balance is possible only by Sama constitution people that we know. Charaka very clearly states the only constitution is Sama constitution, and all other constitutions are people born with some abnormalities. Is the opinion of Charaka Samhita. He straight away says this. It's a very good question. So, because for a Pitta constitution person, he will always have Tikshna. But of course, when he also indulges in imbalancing things which disturbs Agni, that can get disturbed. It doesn't mean that in Pitta person, Agni cannot become Manda. But naturally, that will be Tikshna. That's not going to be Sama naturally. That is a natural tendency. Then you can put efforts to bring it towards Sama. And what is Sama? Sama Agni is defined as a digestive fire which can digest food, a properly eaten food at proper time within 12 hours without any disturbances. That's the definition of Samagni. A digestive fire which can digest a properly eaten, proper quantity of a balanced diet within 12 hours without any discomforts like burping or chest burn or acid reflux, or without any of these disturbances. This is what is decided or kind of defined as Samagni, and that might be achieved by any constitution person with lot of effort. But constitutionally, Pitta is more prone for Tikshnagni and Kabha is more prone for Mandagni and Vata is more prone for Vishamagni, etc. Hope that is clear for Veronica. Yes. So, how shall we proceed?
Dr. Richard, there are a lot of people in the West having a lack of vitamin D. And of course, we are staying too much in the house and things like that. But does it mean that we also have low Brachaka Pitta, that we're not able to digest the influence from the sun, etc.?
Yeah, we cannot just say that if you're not exposed to sun, it reduces Bhrajaka Pitta. But because Bhrajaka Pitta is not directly responsible for metabolizing the food, right? So, but when Susruta Samhita explains how the oil that we use for oil massage is being absorbed, metabolized, etc. So when there is a percutaneous absorption and metabolizing that active principles which is absorbed percutaneously, there Bhrajaka Pitta is being given a role. But otherwise, exposure to sun or Bhrajaka Pitta doesn't have a direct relationship with metabolism. But you can imagine how Agnis are interrelated. Exposure to sun. As we know, we are all living beings, and the basic source of energy of this universe, of in this earth, is photosynthesis and absorption of energy from the photons which is received from the sun. And that genetic imprints are there in almost in everything. Every animals, even if we don't photosynthesize the food, and we don't have that direct relationship between oxidation or cellular respiration. But still, definitely, these channels, when one pitta or Rajaka pitta is not stimulated properly, that has a tendency to influence other pittas, because we have already seen how pittas are getting interrelated, how agnis are getting interrelated. A blockage or a weakness anywhere would trigger some pathways somewhere else, right? So it can be how it get connected with asthi and some other tissues. We know from the metabolic pathways, which is very clear. So a proper exposure to sun, a proper exposure to wind, a proper exposure to water, and all these elements are important both internally and externally for homeostasis. That's very clear how it affects the Agni and the Pitta.
So a lot of people say, well, I have high Vata or high Pitta, but I think it's good to see more on the properties, the gunas from the different doshas, in this case, Pitta dosha, to have a more clear understanding about that. Could you elaborate more on that subject, please?
So, sorry, would you please repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so people tend to say I have high Vata or high Pitta or my Kapha is high, but the different doshas have different gunas, different properties. Could you elaborate more on that and why it's important to understand these properties?
Yeah, good. So the very first question is why? What is the importance of understanding guna of a substance? Is the first question.
The gunas of the Pitta, yeah.
Yeah, guna of Pitta or guna of any substance. Let us generalize it first,
okay,
and then come to precise other things. So without guna, we cannot perceive a substance. When we are perceiving a substance, when we are seeing a substance, what you see is the form of a substance. What you hear is the sound of a substance. What you smell is the smell of the substance. And what you touch is the touch of the substance, right? So you have only 5 ways of knowing. So you are recognizing a substance. You are differentiating a substance from other substances. You are understanding the presence or absence of a substance, quantity of a substance, similarity or dissimilarities between substances. All this is based on gunas or properties, right? So when a person having this shape and this color and this sound come in front, then Mariella thinks that it is Dr. Vijit. Right? And then if this person doesn't speak like how Dr. Vijit used to speak, then you have a doubt whether it is Dr. Vijit or not.
I'm confused.
That's another thing, right? So the second thing is the karma. Yeah, exactly. So it is only through the gunas and karmas, or the properties or actions of substances, that we identify a substance. So the why pitta gunas of a dosha has to be said, because only through gunas we can identify a substance. And I have told that in the last class also, doshas, dhadus and malas, when expressed in the body, they are together, they are working together. You cannot really say, it's not proper to say mutra is urine, because mutra has a presence in the urine. Urine has some kleda with it. It has so many other things with mutra, because mutra is carrying the kleda, the water content from the body. So when it comes out as urine, it has so many things. And we cannot say Purisha is stool. What comes out as fecal matter has mucus, has bile, has so many other things normally. And abnormally, it can have many other things, right? So we don't see doshas, dhadus, and malas alone anywhere. So whenever it is seen, it is mixed, it is interacting to each other. So to identify is the first thing. And then the second thing is to understand what will increase it, what will decrease it, right? So samanya and vishesha, so similarities and dissimilarities. So similar things will increase and dissimilar or opposite things will decrease, to understand that. So these are the purposes or importance of understanding the gunas. And let us look what are the important gunas of Pitta. The first guna told for Pitta by all the scriptures is sasneha, with oily property. It's not snigdha like kapha, but it has oiliness. And what is responsible for this oiliness? It is the water element. The only element which is oily is water. So sasneha means you are inferring the presence of water element with the presence of oiliness. Even when we study about bile, bile is also compared as one of the pittas, even if it is compared as the mala pitta, right? So as the mala of rakta, there is pitta. As a mala of rasa, the plasma, there is kapha, mucus. So the mucus which is secreted through your nose or through your mucous membrane, the respiratory tract, as the mala, which you spit out, is the mala or the waste product of the plasma. And the bile, which is produced from the liver, is the mala pitta, which is the waste product. It's how broken down blood cells are, playing a role in the genesis or production of bile. You can understand when you study physiology. So, but still, when you look at the constitution of bile, also you will see there is oil. And if you just study even about hormones, even progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, these hormones also has produced from fatty acids. They're called lipid hormones, so-called steroids and eicosanoids. So this is how you can see the sneha, the presence of an oily substance, is one of the criteria to understand what is a pitta. The next guna is tikshna, is sharp. What does sharp mean? Sharp is something which is stimulating, secretory, excretory. The opposite of sharp is slow or manda, which means calming down. Just the opposite. So something which is stimulating. We have already seen how enzymes, hormones, all these things are stimulating these various cellular activities in the body. Then ushna. What does ushna means? Ushna means something which is catabolic, which is something which breaks down, something which expands, something which induces sweating. Is the definition of ushna. So something which expands is ushna, something which constricts is cold. So heat is something which is catabolic. So pitta is something which does that catabolism, and it is light. What does light mean? Light is depleting, and also light is something which enhances digestion. There are two interpretations for the word light as a property. Light means something which is light to digest at the level of digestion, so it enhances digestion. And light as a property which, when it acts on the tissues, it is depleting the tissues. So pittas are also substances, something which does that. Then a characteristic thing is smell, because it's pitta, we know, for many people, even as a constitution, it's a problem. It produces body odor, breath odor, bad odor. So producing a fishy smell, a fleshy smell is another characteristic of Pitta. Then the last two words are very important. When we study the properties of all the doshas, we see that Sara and Drava. Sara means flowing. Sara means flowing, and Drava means liquid. That's very clear. So, to call something as Pitta in your body, it should be a liquid. A gaseous substance we cannot, or ionized gases, plasma-like substances we cannot call as Pitta. Solids we cannot call as Pitta. So it's very clear. The text is very clear that Pittas are liquid substances. And then what these liquids are doing, they're Sara. They always move, they flow, they are not in stasis. So, that's the main difference between Pitta and Kapha. Kapha is sthira, like, synovial fluid. Synovial fluid is produced and it doesn't move within the joint to outside usually, right? It doesn't travel from that place. Or cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid is produced in the circle of villi is in the head, and it just circulates around the brain and the spine in that space. So it just stays there. It's in a stasis almost, even if there is some internal circulation, but it doesn't move throughout the body. Kapha stays in the place of its production and it does actions and functions there, whereas Pitta are really liquid substances. They are more liquid and flowing, so they are circulating throughout the body. So the most of the time produced in one area in a gland and has a target organ somewhere else in the body. So this is how it also has such a relation with hormone, the concept of hormones, etc. So these are the gunas given for Pitta, and how that also influences its function. Mariela, any doubt in that?
Yes, there's something I would like to know a little bit more about is the Sara quality, how it relates to the fact that the Vata dosha is the only one that moves, and now the Pitta is also moving. So could you explain that?
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, so Vata, how fast air can move, how fast gases can move. What is Vata? Vata is space and wind, air, right? It's a part of it is space itself. So how in a space air moves, in a cavity air moves. That is the swiftest dosha. That's a fastest dosha. There's no doubt. Ashukaritwad, it acts so fast, no doubt. But the second mobile dosha is Pitta. The difference is it's not as subtle as air. Subtle in the sense the Sukshma guna is not given to Pitta. Pitta is light but not Sukshma. Rather, it is liquid. So, being a liquid, the permeabilities, through cross a membrane for a liquid, there are so many, the osmosis, and there are so many issues to penetrate. So, there is a liquid to pass through a membrane, cell membrane or various membranes, is different from how a gas can penetrate, it gets an entry into, cross blood-brain barriers, or there's so many barriers at an organic level and also at a cellular and tissue level. Vata is the one which crosses all barriers, no barriers. Right? If blocked, Vata will get aggravated. Whereas Pitta, even if it is flowing, but it's a liquid, that shows that it has entry in some areas and it doesn't have entry in all the areas. So there are specific affinities and mechanisms. But still, Pitta is a mobile dosha. This we should understand. Sara is another word for movement, but it's a liquid movement, right? Flowing. It's a very good question. So if anybody else who is watching has any doubts to raise until now, otherwise Mariella can proceed.
Everything is
Any
clear.
questions?
Yeah, I think everything is clear. So, well, you already talked about how the relation between Pitta and the hormones and the enzymes are there. Is there anything you want to say more about that, or is it?
Yeah, I will come to that. So now we will look into the functionalities of Pitta, right? What are the functions given to Pitta? So we have seen the gunas and then we go into the karmas. So the very first group of functions I'm going to tell you is physical, and then we will look how fire has an impact on your mind, because as I told you, like how how a summer influences you, in the same way your fire also, or Pitta also influences your mind. So Pitta is, and also when you are at stress, of course Vata is the dosha which is getting stressed, but also Pitta, because you are using Sathaka Pitta specifically for accomplishing something, etc. So you look at hunger, thirst, and digesting the food. That's the first group, Pajaka Pitta functions, producing hunger, thirst, digesting the food. And that itself leads to thermoregulation. When you break down, digestion itself is an exothermous activity. It produces enormous amount of heat. Then that's the fourth function. You've seen coloring of the blood, coloring of various aspects of your body, if the sixth function. Then producing the glow, the prabha, the luster. There's a radiance that comes out of you, which is also the function of Pitta, and also producing softness of the tissues. The softness again because of the liquid aspect, or the water element produces the softness also. So these are the physical aspects of Pitta. So right from digestion to softness, color, appearance, glow is the physical aspect of Pitta. Whereas in the mind, Pitta gives you desire. Pitta is very ambitious and desirous, like Sathaka Pitta. But at the same time, it makes your mind sensitive. It can be both positive and negative. If you use your sensitivity for good things, it can be sensitive, but it can also have a negative urge. It can also make you short-tempered. So Pitta is at that vigilance, making your mind vigilant. Then clarity of mind is another function. Manaprasada is also a function of Pitta. Then it's responsible for a very important thing is grasping power, mental grasping. So Pitta, the fire can even throw light and take things in. The moment somebody starts speaking in the Pitta, people will understand what they're going to say. That grasping power, intelligence, courage, adventurous nature. So this is how fire functions in the mind. Now, we will just, as Mariella has asked, let us just look at what are the common functions of hormones in the body. If I put as a general question, it's like metabolism of food, growth and development, controlling thirst and hunger, maintaining body temperature, regulating mood and cognitive functions, initiating and maintenance of sexual development and reproduction. So these are considered as the basic functions of hormones. If you want to be a bit more precise, how hypothalamus is responsible for the thermoregulation, maintenance of body temperature, regulation of emotions, sensation of hunger and thirst, sleep, etc. And also how it controls other pittas or other hormones. How it sequences. That's another. Fire is like that. Fire is always like a chain reaction. How fire catches further. In the same way, Pitta also starts from one end and succeeds like that. That's also a fiery nature. how hypothalamus and pituitary then goes this axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, ovarian axis, that axis, this axis. This axis nature is also a pitta nature. And how pineal glands and in the hypothalamus produces serotonins and melatonins and affecting sleep, mood, etc. And how parathyroid hormone is responsible for the amount of calcium present in the body, which Ross was speaking of before. How thyroid hormone is responsible for heart rate and basic metabolic rate. How adrenal glands controls cardiac activity, sex drive, and stress. So you can see how a pancreas gland involves in the production of insulin, maintaining blood glucose level, energy management, etc. So you can see how these, when you get into the functions of Pitta, how they almost functionally lie in very much hand in hand with many functions of Pitta. Is that clear?
Yes, you have put a good basis to understand this link now between Pitta and the hormones. Yes, thank you.
And if anybody if others doesn't have other questions, please go to the last topic.
Yes, you already elaborated on the acne and how important the acne is for our mental and physical health being. So, what are the most important imbalancing causes for a disturbed acne?
Yeah. So, what are the imbalancing factors for the acne? So, again, there are few things which is related to how you eat and when you eat, which maintains the acne. So, when we speak about food and what is eating and digestion, Ayurveda has a kind of a reverse way of looking at it. We see that we usually say that digestion is to generate fire or energy and generate the nutrients which is important for building up our human body. Whereas at first, Ayurveda says the basic function of eating and food is to become the fuel for the fire. That's a very interesting concept. And probably this is a concept that the Western physiology still has not, unfortunately, understand. So eating is almost like fueling. The very first function, that what does that mean? If you don't give fuel for long time, what will happen? That Agni will, or the fire will slow down. So people think that fasting is always good to improve Agni. But we have to understand that food is the fuel. So if there is nothing to burn, then the fire will also start getting weakened. And very interestingly, when Charaka explains the causes of imbalance of fire, that is the first factor he says. Lack of proper fuel or abhojana, improper fasting. Improper fasting, this especially in the West, we see a lot because people are in a what do you call, the cult of losing weight, and people easily tend to fast. And improper fasting, if the fire doesn't get enough fuel, that's the very first reason. Then of course, eating before the previous meal is digested, the second cause. This is a very Indian cause. If the other, we are almost at two different extremes, Mariana. So we tend to overfeed and eat before the previous food is digested. Then ati bhojana, or eating excessive quantity of food. Then eating at irregular times. So we also have this biological clock, and Agni also really get into that rhythm. And if we lose that rhythm and improper timings of the meals, then eating, so these are the related to the action of eating directly. Then some important clues about the food. What kind of food can imbalance your Agni? The very first thing which the Western mind, and especially now those trends are coming up in India as well. Eating things which are unacquainted to you. Asatmya bhojan is the number one cause of imbalancing the Agni. So every day there will be a new research and a new diet and a new finding that if you eat like this and if you eat this, now you are going to be very healthy. And there are a group of people who jump into it. You name it, right? Keto diet and then smoothies. I have heard a lot of different diets. So if you change your diet like this, that itself, and stop taking whatever you are taking and start taking something totally asatmya to you, unacquainted to you. That's a number one cause among the foods, types of foods that can cause disturbance to the fire. Then heavy foods, cold food naturally can slow down fire and weaken the fire. And too dry food. Food should be warm and oily. Food should be warm and oily because that's like Pitta. It has to stimulate Pitta. Then improper foods. That's another new trend. In terms of incompatibility, you mix so many things together and make something, and that create an imbalanced food. Then improper ways of preservation, improper ways of packing, canning, all these things can, and including there we should dushta bhodana, we should also consider spoiled food, like it can be food poisoning or things like that. Then other reasons. Now we have seen types or improper ways of eating, improper foods which imbalances, weakens your fire. Then other reasons like if you have a vomiting, if you have fever, all those, if you have too much of gastric irritation, these kinds of diseases which are related to digestive tract, or having chronic diseases. Having chronic diseases can also weaken your fire. And also change of place, change of season, change of activities, etc. can also imbalance your fire. And finally, but very importantly, another common cause is holding of urges, especially holding of downward urges, natural urges like flatulence, feces, urine, all these downward urges, if you hold, that can also seriously imbalance our digestion and digestive fire. So these are the main digestive factors that weakens your fire. So we know what to avoid and how to protect yourself by having your fire enough strength. So I invite Mariela and anybody else who is listening to us to ask any question before we sum up this whole session. You have to unmute, sorry.
Is there anyone who's having a question for Dr. Fidget at the moment? I think it's very interesting to look at ourselves first very kindly but seriously before we are consulting our clients about these things, because I think we all have not really clear hands on the subjects ourselves, and also eating things that we hear about, maybe even from Ayurveda or from India, that we try to incorporate instead of keeping to local products and what we are used to in our climate and in our environment. Um, and there have been people to our place who said, yes, but in Sri Lanka, I was in an Ayurvedic clinic and we got smoothies every day. And it's such a different climate also than here in the West. So
Yeah, yeah, that's a very important point what you made, really, because Ayurveda doesn't mean like practicing Ayurveda doesn't mean that's a in an international level. But the very important point that you brought up doesn't mean that eating what Indians eat and doing what Indians do is not the definition of Ayurveda. And using Indian herbs is also not the solution of Ayurveda. But unfortunately, as we don't have as many formulations and prescriptions as we have here, effectively there, we still have to adapt. But at least in terms of climatic adaptations, lifestyle, and food habits, etc., we have to wisely incorporate. And this is a strong statement that asatmya jahi rogasyu. It is the asatmya, which is taking, doing things which is totally unacquainted to you, is the basis of disease. Because life usually otherwise handles even bad things which are used to. Life is so, so powerful, and life has the capacity to protect itself. Pranayashanam. To protect the prana is the very basic nature of life. So, but if you shock it by giving such big shocks, then only it reacts uh, badly. Ingeborg has, she said, just says her question was answered. Thank you, Ingeborg, for your presence. And that's a very nice statement. Anybody want to have statements, questions, etc.? We leave 1 minute. Mariela, probably you also have something to say to conclude. Then I'll do the conclusion.
yes, well, thank you, Dr. Fitnit. I think a lot of practitioners think they know about acne and they know about Pitta and the fire concept, but you make it so clear and your knowledge is so profound that every time I listen to you, I can make so many notes and think, oh, yes, that I have to keep in mind. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariela. It's always a privilege, by after almost 18 years of practicing or like running a center like this and teaching for 15 years in Europe, I and Vidya look back at what we have done. And people like you, Mariela, I remember you and Lisa came to our clinic together. I remember those days where you were here. And we are so proud that what you have done, what you have accomplished. Almost you have kind of created another Sri Krishna as Sukha there in the Tessel. I remember the lot of legal issues you had with local government and how you have really went consistently in putting effort to manifest it. So you are really a good example for Westerners and Western students, how you can have your own center, a practice place, even place to stay. I have seen rooms there, beautiful rooms, and a lot of space around. So that's quite commendable and proud, and happy. Even through these videos, I also wanted to showcase even Indians and the world that how Ayurveda has got, how the flame of Ayurveda, the fire of Ayurveda has made fires, huge fires, and in places like Tessel, and how that's being shared. That's the beauty of fire. If somebody want to get lighted, you can share your fire, but still your fire remains brighter and brighter. That's the beauty of fire. And I'm very happy that the wisdom is being constantly refined and stimulated. And also thank you, Mariela, for spending so much of time for us today. I know people in the West, especially with having 4 children, being a mother, also you're so busy for a Sunday. And I end by stating the very basic statement of Charaka Samhita today by stating, and Veronica asks, will there be a session on Panchakarma? Sometime definitely we'll have Panchakarma. And the explanation is about Panchakarma once we finish doshas. So probably next session will be about some other aspects of Pitta and Kapha. And then we go about what is the role of Panchakarma, how Panchakarma is a unique tool among all other systems in the world. There is nothing comparable in the world to Panchakarma. We will definitely bring that topic. Thank you, Veronica, for reminding that. So I would like to end this session by repeating Charaka's statement that death is nothing but destruction of your internal fire. Chante agganer mriyate. Yukte chiram jivati anamaya. If you can keep your fire intact, you will live forever. That's a statement. It's quite a statement. If you can maintain your fire, you will live forever. And he says, living is like a burning lamp, an oil lamp. You need to the proportion of the oil that is being poured, the air where it is being lit, the wick, everything has a role. And finally, the purpose is to burn and to even shed light and heat around you. So, yukte chiram jivati anamaya. And disease is nothing but imbalance of fire. Yogi syad vikriti. Hence, fire is the root of life. Thank you for listening. Namaste.